Okay, great. On behalf of ThinkAg, a very warm welcome to all the panelists and all the participants on this episode of AgClinic, which is focused on water use efficiency. We did it the first series about 2 years back, and it got tremendous response. And we thought that it is a good time to repeat this, given the contextuality and relevance of the topic. And we are very grateful to the Revolus India team who have volunteered to partner with us in this program, given the deep network and knowledge of this sector. We really thank the entire Revolus team for partnering with ThinkAg for this. So before I hand it over to Kaushal for the opening remarks, just want to set the context for everyone. I think we all know how important is water for agriculture, and the fact that in India we consume almost 80% of the water available for agriculture. There's all the more reason to talk about water use efficiency and the challenges that we are seeing on account of climate risk and the water table going down year on year, and unreliable, unpredictable monsoon. I think the importance of this subject is extremely, is going up from year on year. And I also read that half the bore wells in India are going to go dry in next 10 years, which is scary statistics to know, but that's a fact. And the evapotranspiration in agriculture is going to double in next 50 odd years. So I think these are some facts which are staring at us, and I think we need to address it. And the way I see it has to be a combination of policy, investments, partnership, and innovations. I think all has to come together to solve for it. Working primarily with startups, I can tell you from innovation side, we are seeing some good momentum from a lot of startups who are doing a fantastic job in this sector. On one hand, we are seeing use of remote sensing, satellite imagery, sensors to measure soil moisture, and also drive solutions for precision irrigation. The startups like Cultivate, Soil Sense, Satyug, Petshore, Flybird, and many others who are trying to build models around it. And we are also seeing some very interesting grassroots innovation from EF Polymer, Urdhvam, Equesta, which are building solution for water conservation. But clearly need a lot of support from all of you who are on the panel today, a lot of support from the government, and a lot of support from investors like us to take this solution to scale and make the solution more mainstream, so that they reach to our farmers. So I think that was the sort of reason for coming together. And again, thanks very much for your time. And with that, I'll hand over the mic to Kaushal for his opening remarks. Kaushal, floor is yours.
Thank you, Hemendra, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists. It's a very, very knowledgeable panel and here, and I hope that everyone will get benefited from their viewpoints. And when I talk about and all the participants, I can see some 80 people have already logged in. So very, very happy New Year to all the participants, and good afternoon to all of you. You have given me a challenge to give my opening remarks, and it's really challenging for me to set a context and give my opening remarks with such an educated and knowledgeable panel here with me. But water use efficiency to me is a very, very broad term. I understand from your context setting that we are primarily talking about the agriculture here. So I will restrict myself to agriculture. I'll move away from the industry and services and household. But the important here is a known fact, and everyone knows that the importance of the fresh water in agriculture. And when we are talking about the water use efficiency, we are talking about the output or outcome of per unit of the water, what exactly we are measuring, whether in terms of biomass produced by using per unit of water, or if in terms of economics, how much dollars or how much rupees output is coming by using per meter cube of water. So we will set the context in this light. And India, for the Indian team, is furthermore important to understand. And you said, Hemendra, very, very rightly, that India use more than 80% of the water and fresh water for the agriculture uses. And I was just going through a data recently, maybe a few days back. I was reading a report of FAO, which says the water productivity in India compared to Israel. There is a huge list of the countries. In India, in agriculture, is $0.4 per meter cube of water, while in Israel is around 1.4 or $1.5 per meter cube of the water used. So this is the difference of the water productivity or economics of that. Is maybe it's due to certain crops also. Maybe they are using high value crops, but yes, quite of important is basically water use efficiency also. So this is the context here. And we are into the business as a Revolis into irrigation business, and we are the world's second largest company as far as the micro irrigation is concerned and drip irrigation is concerned. And we all know the water use efficiency of using of drip irrigation is around 95%. So that means whatever water we are giving it to the plant, 91% of the water is getting used for the plant metabolism, and maybe 5% is getting going through the transpiration losses or the leaching losses. So, but there is a very, very limitation here of improving it further. In this technology is the only 5%, 6% window is available for the further improvement here as far as the water use efficiency is concerned. But despite that, despite the knockdown effect of this technology has been there for last 5 decades or maybe more than that, to be very honest with you. Still the global adoption of micro irrigation of the drip irrigation technology is, in my view, the data which I go through for the all irrigated land available into the globe is less than 15%. So we as a panelist, we really need to think about, having known that there's a knockdown effect, there is a very, very proven effect of this technology for water use efficiency is concerned, still global adoption is not happening. I'm not even talking of India. Other than Israel and few more countries, it's not happening. And in my view, why it's not happening, there are 3 things which I think is important, and we need to find an answers for that. Number 1, cost. The initial cost is high even for a farmer of developed countries. Very important to us for understand it. And number 2 is the complexity involved with this. It is not plug and play kind of system. It needs lot of hydraulic designing. A farmer who wants to do it, he need to have a support of an agriculture engineer or the micro irrigation company to come do the designing, do the mapping, and then do the installation and system, and sometimes even maintain it. So that is the second complexity is involved here. It is, we really need, as an industry, we really need to work out on these 2 major aspects. Number 1, how can we bring down the cost to make it more affordable? And number 2, how to remove the complexities involved. And third is return of investment. Yes, there is a proven fact that return of investments are high, but they are not consistent enough, to be very honest with you. So these are the 3 basic reasons. As an industry, we really need to come together, and as a scientist, we really need to find the answers to these 3 basic things. Number 1 is cost, number 2 is the complexity, and number 3 is the return of investment. And from Revolis side, we are working very, very hard to at least bring down the cost, number 1, to make it more affordable. And our R&D teams are working very hard on this aspect, and we are trying out different materials, different kind of drippers, so that to bring down the cost to make it more affordable. And the the complexity is such high, Hemendra and other panelists. To be very honest with you, as a managing director of an irrigation company, I should be going through a Jet Plus security because some of the state governments are giving it free of cost. Still, that option is not there. If you are getting something free of cost or with a 90% security, and a system worth maybe 1,50,000 rupees per hectare, you are getting free the state like Tamil Nadu, or maybe 90% subsidy in a state like Uttar Pradesh or Bihar, or maybe 70-80% subsidy in a state like Maharashtra. I should be having the Jet Plus security, and there should be a line across outside my office or outside my home, but it's an option not happening. So let's understand there are some basic flaws in the system, and we really need to look into that ecosystem around that, how to remove that, and then see what best can be done. But one thing is for sure, as of now, that's the only proven alternative available for us to improve the water use efficiency in agriculture sector. Yes, there are other ways of doing it, but that's the best possible method. So I leave it up to you guys to deliberate, discussion. If I can get some solution, I will be happy to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaushal, for being very upfront and laying out the landscape of the challenges that we have on hand. But I think the problem is big enough for us to put our heads together and figure it out. I'm sure there'll be a queue outside your house and office at some stage to look for this solution. I sincerely hope that that day arrives. So thanks very much for these opening remarks, and I totally agree in terms of the criticality. In fact, there's a concept which says now we should measure our productivity for crops per liter of water rather than per hectare of land, because that's what is more scarcer than land. So with that thought, I'll invite Mr. Shrikant Goenka. He's the MD for Premier Irrigation, and he's also the President of Irrigation Association of India, for his remarks and his presentation. Mr. Goenka, we all look forward to hear from you.
Thanks very much, Hemendra, and good afternoon to our respected panelists. And congratulations to ThinkAg and Revealers for organizing this very interesting webinar, where we have people across the entire chain. We have Mr. Kichar here, who will give us a brilliant government perspective. We have the people from the embassy who are going to help us understand how at a global, multinational and global level, how technologies can be brought into countries. We have users, we have the sugar, which is the crop guzzler. We have Mr. Tamak from Dcm Serram. We have a full plethora of very, very eminent panelists, and we have now 100 listeners to us. So thank you, ThinkAg and Revealers, for organizing this. And I'm going to just, I made a small deck for today's presentation, and with your permission, Hemendra, I'm going to just take you all through this. Is the presentation beaming on the screen?
Yes, we can all see this.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with a very inspiring quote from our Honorable Prime Minister, where he says that we must enable farmers to feed India and the world and earn a good livelihood. A very potent statement that captures the very essence of the huge population in the country, which is dependent on agriculture. Now, if you look at the water scenario, our opening remarks by Hemendra and Kaushal covered parts of it. The fact that 54% of India faces high to extremely high water stress. We have almost, and the reason obviously is the excessive use in agriculture. We have almost 80% of the water being used in agriculture, which is further causing this water stress. And as Hemendra was mentioning in the beginning, the dropping water levels, only 38% of the wells in India have shown a rise, and there is a decline in 61% of the whatever. There's no surprise, therefore, that although 69% of our population is engaged in agriculture, we are able to only contribute 16%, 18% to the GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, the solution, we firmly believe as Irrigation Association of India, and even as our company, which is India's oldest micro irrigation company, that micro irrigation is the solution. There have been umpteen studies conducted by several independent and government bodies, and the kind of efficiencies in water use, in reduction in input costs, and increase in crop productivity will all drive us towards the doubling farmers' income goal that the country has set. Also, if you look at it from a sustainable development goals, I mean, this is one technology that contributes to 5 of the sustainable goals. So, I mean, if you look at no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitization, climate change, and a greater objective of economic growth and prosperity. So we are able to, by doing this one, focusing on this one technology, you can tick box 5 of the sustainable development goals. And therefore, taking a cue from that, we have the key drivers for micro irrigation, which is obviously the depleting water resource, the growing population. A very big challenge is climate change. I'm sure all of us are, we ought to be brutally aware of the severe impact climate change is happening on, having on agriculture, as much as we see it happening in our own lives. And builds a very strong case for the need for micro irrigation. We are seeing it day to day in our business across the nation. Of course, there's another growing factor, which is the interest of farmers towards high value crops due to the changed lifestyle we've all witnessed. And then, of course, the government policies and trust is another driver for micro irrigation. Then, despite that, despite these drivers, despite all these needs, if we look at the actual coverage is very, very insignificant. If you look at the total potential is almost 7 crore hectares, 690 lakh hectares. And this is a potential that was estimated many years ago, and the potential has increased significantly. Whereas the coverage till now has just been 125 lakh hectares. So largely insignificant. Even if you look at the geographic spread, 80% of the coverage is found in hardly 6 states. And the major growth, even in the last 5 years of the flagship government program, PMKSY, has been mainly in the western and southern states. I mean, the north and east and northeast remain a huge potential. So why is this really happening? And the challenges in front of the industry, of course, to the farmer is, of course, the fact that there's no convenient financing available. Sometimes water, electricity is a challenge. A real challenge comes from the government, where although the government of India is, and even the state governments in many cases are very keen to deploy micro irrigation, the process is very lengthy, very cumbersome, and all this leads to delays in payment, which are significant and unmanageable. And then the MI companies themselves are facing significant challenges with the volatility in the raw material prices, which are completely taking the profit and loss accounts and basic existence in challenge. So given this context of this huge need, given the context of this low coverage till now, what could be, I thought we'll write in this presentation, what could be the enablers for micro irrigation despite the need. So if you look at it, on one hand, one of the big enablers is the government program, the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, where the government is really fueling in a lot of funds, and additionally, the government has provided loans for the state governments to support their intent to do top-up subsidies. And the watershed development program, the accelerated irrigation benefits program, and the Honorable Prime Minister, who's been a huge spokesperson, and his goal has been to cover, it's in the government's manifesto, the BJP Sankalp Patra talks about covering 1 crore hectares in these 5 years. Now 1 crore hectare means a coverage of almost 20 lakh hectares a year. Ladies and gentlemen, our coverage in the last 5 years has been on an average of just 10 lakh hectares a year, which means the Honorable Prime Minister's vision and this government's vision is to double that coverage immediately. And this is also covered in the Niti Aayog strategy document and various other government documents to emphasize the intent and the promise of the government. Another enabler is from an intrinsic side of the shift to sustainable and agriculture towards exotic crops. So in many parts of the country, farming without micro irrigation is unimaginable. So whether or not there is subsidy, there is a huge opportunity. When we talk about water conservation, when we talk about micro irrigation, there are several other opportunities. So the smart cities, for example, the plan to create 100 new smart cities and rejuvenate 500 others offers a massive opportunity for landscape irrigation. The other opportunity that exists is where again huge water conservation can happen is community irrigation, where downstream of major irrigation projects, the Central Water Commission has mandated the necessity of implementing micro irrigation to conserve water. Startups, Himendra was talking in the beginning, and that's again a massive opportunity to collaborate. So are the farmer producer organizations or contract farming and precision agriculture. So there is a huge opportunity. As you can see, this window is a bouquet of possibilities for expanding the coverage of micro irrigation. And as we go forward, the way forward for the sector, as we see it, would be, of course, very close working with the government, with the state governments, to create a sustained, a stable policy environment so that farmer can avail micro irrigation around the year, because agriculture doesn't stop. Our financial year ends in March, but farming continues. Farming doesn't stop for the financial year end. And if a farmer wants to sow a crop in April and he needs micro irrigation in April, he needs that support immediately. The industry needs to work and create better business to business linkages, collaborations, and also work in various areas of investment together with the different governments. Another challenge that I think micro irrigation companies need to internally explore is change our own business strategies, our own focus, and venture into new segments, which is explore urban India, to explore vertical gardens, and to collaborate and to grow. With these few slides and without taking more of your time, I share with you the optimism, the great hope, and the promise that the micro irrigation industry is seized with the opportunity, with the need, with the extreme commitment to work with farmers, with governments, with industry, with organizations, with think tanks, with scientists, with governments, to achieve this very noble and huge goal of water use efficiency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shrikant. It's been a very, very insightful presentation, bringing out all the facts and figures in a very, very succinct form. And glad to see your commitment and optimism. I think that's extremely important. And I'm sure if we work together, we'll definitely be able to solve the challenges that we have on hand. Thanks very much for joining us, and thanks for this wonderful presentation. With that, I'll hand over the stage to Dr. Sangeeta Ladha. She's the moderator for today's session. She'll introduce other panelists, and I'm sure we want to have a very, very interesting panel ahead. Sangeeta, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Hemendra. Before we start, I just wanted to understand whether we would like to take one or two questions, I think, which are there for Shrikant sir, if I'm not wrong. Especially one of them is asking about macro irrigation coverage in the rural sector. Shrikant sir, would you like to take up this question?
So, Jhalesh, you've asked a question about, your first question is, what is the percentage of farmer used micro irrigation rural area? And the other question is, after providing micro irrigation, rural farmer does not use this micro irrigation system. How do we engage them for micro irrigation systems? So very good question. And the answer is not a single and simple answer. So when we look at coverage on an actual usage of the equipment, it's also to do with maturity of a community. Now, when we look at, for example, the state of Andhra Pradesh, even within Andhra Pradesh, there will be districts where the irrigation system might be used as a pipeline. But there will be districts which are in, for example, the Rayalaseema area, which is Anarpur, Chittoor, Kadapa, where the micro irrigation system is used in its entirety. A sprinkler system in Maharashtra is used almost 100% as a complete micro irrigation system, whereas when we look at some of the states where the technology is developing, it is often used more as a pipeline to start with. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's a start. It's the way we learn to expand. Now, there is a role of the micro irrigation company. There's a role of government in working with farmers in underdeveloped markets or developing markets to try and share experiences of other progressive farmers and the benefits they have got by using the systems properly. As an organization, our company, which has been in existence for almost 55 years, has seen and passed through this journey where, for example, in a state like Madhya Pradesh, you've seen that journey escalate or improve from just a basic use of systems to a high-end and complete usage. So I don't know which state you're talking about, but pretty much this is the process of evolution, and I think we should see it in a very positive and progressive way.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Kaushal sir, Mr. Hemendra, and Shrikant sir for your setting the context for this particular webinar. Once again, Driverless India Think Tank are privileged to host this webinar on increasing water use efficiency, and are delighted once again to welcome on board exemplary panelists having commendable experience in water sector. And water agriculture, we have always been saying that intricately linked water crisis significantly impacts the water agriculture productivity. And the government of India's scheme of per drop, more crop actually means higher output or higher crop productivity per cubic meter of water. And it is in a very lucid way defines water use efficiency or water productivity. So with this, we are glad to have on board Mr. Rajendra Khichar, Joint Director Horticulture and the State Nodal Officer for PDMC, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana from Government of Rajasthan. He has been conferred with Jal Star Award, and I've worked closely with him during my assignment in Jaipur, and I've seen him, the way the solar pump based irrigation systems, the team which he was leading, got recognized in Limca Book of Records. And he has also been conferred with Scientist of the Year Award by Society for Recent Development in Agriculture, has several publications to his credit, a multifaceted personality. So Rajendra Khichar ji, we welcome you on board on this panel. Our next speaker on the board is Mr. Ashwin Pandya. In fact, as per the data from the Central Water Commission, the India's per capita water availability has declined by 70% in last 50 years. And we have none other than Mr. Ashwin Pandya ji, who has been the chairman of CWC, who is currently the Secretary General of International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage. Dr. Pandya is an alumnus of IIT Delhi with 4 decades of professional experience in water resources and irrigation planning. And he has been working with several top positions in Government of India's Ministry of Water Resources. He was the ex-DG of National Water Development Agency, CMD of National Project Construction Corporation, and chairman of the CWC. So welcome you, sir, on board. We have our next panelist, Dr. Lear Asaf. In fact, 2022 is United Nations Year of Groundwater. And Dr. Lear Asaf, who is a water attaché in Israel Embassy based at New Delhi, specializes in groundwater hydrology, hydrological modeling, environmental monitoring, surface water, watershed management, geographic information systems. And he has worked with various projects with UNDP and USAID. The Embassy of Israel in India is very active, very instrumental in developing and working across Pan India on developing centers of excellence, and we look forward to hearing much more from Dr. Leah Asaf. Welcome you, sir, on board. We have our next speaker from the World Bank. In fact, the World Bank has said that climate crisis is nothing but a water crisis, because climate directly affects the hydrological cycle. And Ajit Radhakrishnan, who is with us, is a senior specialist at the World Bank's Global Water Practice. He is a country lead for the 2030 Water Resources Group in India. Ajit holds a graduate degree in public administration from Columbia University, New York, as a Fulbright Fellow of the US government. And he has worked with leading global agricultural policy research development organizations, including the CGIAR, ADB, and the United Nations. So welcome you, Ajit. Glad to have you on the board. We have our next panelist from DCM Serram Limited. In fact, agriculture sector in India consumes almost nearly 90% of the available fresh water, and it is said that sugarcane, rice, wheat consumes nearly 50%. So we have Mr. Roshan Lal Tamak, who heads the sugar and ethanol business at DCM Serram Limited as the executive director and the CEO. And he brings with him more than 3 decades of distinguished professional experience in the Indian sugar sector. Tamak sir is a key member in various committees of industrial platforms like CII, Indian Sugar Mills Association, and Sugar Technologists Association of India. And he is a key in influencing or in formulation of policy matters. He is also on the global board of directors with Bon Sucro in London, and he has also been conferred with the Rashtriya Udyog Award and Sustainability Executive of the Year Award. So with this introductions, I welcome all the panelists. And to begin with, since Mr. Ashwin Pandya sir has to leave, so I begin my panel discussions with you, sir. Ashwin Pandya sir, are you there?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, sir. Sir,
Okay.
the ICID
Thank you, Sangeeta. Yeah.
ICID is a leading scientific technical organization working with nearly 86 countries. And we would like to hear from you on ICID's initiatives towards sustainable agriculture water management, and the way you have also been working with various corporates in this field of drainage, flood, sustainable water management, and what's your mandate actually?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta and other friends at Privilis. It is indeed a matter of great pleasure to be here with all of you and share a few thoughts on the water use efficiency and the efficient use of water in the area of agriculture water management. ICID incidentally was established especially for the purpose of improving the water use efficiency and making the finite resource last longer. That was the idea when we started developing our water resources across the world from 1950 onwards. And we realized at that point of time that the resources being finite, it is much necessary for all of us to use those resources in a most justified and in a more balanced kind of way. So ICID has been working since then. This area of water use efficiency and also improving the systems so that we are able to get most production out of the drop of water in a unit hectare of land. ICID has got a network of professionals all across the world. We have nearly about 80 countries as our members, and more than 95% of the irrigated area of the world is scattered to by the community, which are members of the ICID.
I think we lost Mr. Ashwin Pandya. So are you on mute or you have lost the connection?
Yeah. Okay. Now is it okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry for the interruption. The ICID has got a number of schemes and a number of initiatives through which we promote the efficient use of water management in the agriculture. We, being a network of the countries, we try to provide the information about various efficient and other water saving means to various other countries who are our members, and spread the knowledge, disseminate the knowledge in a manner that the technologies and the science is advanced to the extent possible, and various countries who are at different levels for development are able to reap the benefit of the that are taking place elsewhere. We have in ICID, we have a system of recognizing the water saving technologies that are being developed across the world in the form of individual efforts, as a part of the farmers on farm intuition based approaches, also as a part of the young professionals who are developing these areas in their own field, and so on. And these awards basically showcase the technologies that have come up during the year in various parts of the world, which are of use to the rest of the world. And so we have got a WhatsApp awards, which we award every year. We also recognize the structures who are performing in historical perspective. And because of that, the water management has progressed over the ages. And there we go for the water heritage irrigation structures who have been performing or who have got performed. And they provide with a lot of knowledge about the traditional methods and traditional usages that the water has been going through. Similarly, we have got another scheme in which we have got what is called, we recognize what is called water systems heritage. The water is a very complex subject, and not only the deployment of water in terms of hardware is important, but also how the community utilizes that water and how the community distributes that water amongst themselves in a most equitable and an efficient manner is also equally important. For that, the historical distribution and management systems that are there prevalent in the society are also recognized by ICIT. Now, these are the recognition part of it. The real part is the propagation of technologies, identification of technologies, and then propagation of them across the world. For that, there are a large number of working groups where the professionals associated with a particular discipline, or rather a sub-discipline of water management, are able to come together and discuss amongst themselves the state of the art in the subject. They also discuss and share the experiences that they are generating or they are coming across in various parts of the world, and then come together and provide a standard codes of practice or a standard guidelines or a standard collection of information, which then can be used by the rest of the world communities to their best advantage. So using these areas, it is very much the part of the ICID's activities where we try to provide with a knowledge base to the world about the various information and various technologies that are available across the world for their benefit. We have large number of countries are our members, and they are all at a different development stage. Many of the countries are still developing their systems. Many of the countries are still coming up with their systems. And there it becomes the duty of ICID to provide them with the support, with the help of our direct and also our other individual members, to avail the technologies that are already available across the world in other areas, and then carry out some of the pilot projects or some of the initiatives so that they are able to demonstrate in their own social, cultural, and engineering context that how the technology can be useful to them and how they can propagate it. There are various initiatives like solar powered irrigation, especially the micro irrigation, which is solar powered, are very important initiatives that we would like to promote and we would like to provide the countries. There are also other systems management and also automation as well as the application of modern IoT-based technologies who are capable of providing a better view to the farmer about the water requirements in their own areas, as well as the demand-supply equation management. So these are the areas in which the ICID tries to work very hard and will try to provide with the information and disseminate the information, because our primary job is to disseminate the information. Similarly, we also have a set of journals and set of very key events, which are the international global events, where the professionals are able to come together, exchange their ideas, exchange their products and services information, and thereby enrich everybody in general. So I feel that the technologies that are getting developed now are of a very high order. We are seeing a quantum jump in various of our technological capabilities. But then these jumps will be of no use unless we are able to disseminate them across the world, and the user base is generated who is able to consume these technologies. And for that purpose, we feel that the networking provided by the ICID is going a long way in generating this much needed effort. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to discuss with all of you. And at ICID, we will be very happy to interact with any or all of you in the manner that we feel that the sector of agriculture water management comes through a progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, can we have one question for you? One more, if you have just 2 minutes. You rightly mentioned that ICID is a knowledge organization, knowledge-based organization involved in disseminating of information. There are a lot of agriculture startups which have come up who have got very disruptive technologies. How they should be able to collaborate with ICID?
ICID has got multiple opportunities for these startups and for these to collaborate. Number one is we have got what is called a product and services directory. And in that product and services directory, you can put your own achievements free of cost. There is no cost associated with it. Secondly, we can also help in approaching the countries where such a potential needs may be arising, and then try to expose them through webinars or through any other interaction means like study tours, etc., so that the professionals in those countries are capable of understanding the new technologies that is being discussed. And the biggest area is putting in your information across in our events, where the high level professionals from all across the world gather, and they are able to see these technologies. Maybe they will be able to improve upon it. Maybe they will be able to give some other additional valuable suggestions. And then there are larger number of developing countries who will also be able to see and then try to bring them in. So there are multiple ways in which ICID is able to help you. And we would be rather happy to provide any such help where it is possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thanks a lot for taking out your time despite your very busy schedule and all. I'm sure that you want to leave, so I will not hold you on further. And if there are any questions, I'll send it across to you later on. Yeah. So thank you very much, sir. Once again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Friends, we move on to our next panel member. Respected Dr. Leah Asaf Watateci. In fact, he has been in India only for, I think recently, he has taken over the position of Watateci just 6 months before. So Dr. Leah, over to you. We would like to understand from you on the Israel's initiatives in promoting water use efficiency in India. You have been here for the last 6 months. What are your insights and what is your take on the topic?
Thank you very much for the audience and for the panelists. I think the issue of water efficiency is very crucial to India development at all. If we look at the large picture, it's very important that India is using more water than US and China altogether. Per capita, there is more water in India than in Israel, actually 3 times more. And India using in very large scale I mean, it's would be the most country with the most population in the world in the next few years, overcome China, and it's an economical power. And the issue of sustainability, I think this is in the core of it. And if I think that if we look at an Israeli model, in Israel, there is no one single acre of land under irrigation that is not under micro irrigation. Israeli farmer cannot allow themselves to use water with low efficiency. The price is too much because there is a very strong driven economical model for the price of water, for the price of agriculture, and therefore the Israeli farmer must use micro irrigation as part of the food process. However, in India, the situation is different. If we look at the large scale of India, farmer community across the sectors are not going to pay the full price of water, not in the upcoming years. And I think it's going to be for a matter of understanding that the government of India still subsidize water and still subsidize infrastructure for agriculture and water for many years to come. So if we look on the issue of how we transfer large communities and large farmers only in the, let's say, in the lens of water efficiency, it's not going to be enough driven or enough motivation for the Indian farmer. And the reason is that we need to come with more holistic approach, dealing on sustainability, dealing about food production and higher yields and higher income for the Indian farmer. Because then there is something that you can offer, then there is something that is relevant for the livelihood of the farmer. And then we need to look what are the strangleholds, what are the difference between states like Maharashtra or Gujarat or Tamil Nadu with 40% penetration, than other states in India that less than 4 or 3%, like Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and so on. And Mr. Gonka in the beginning of the presentation spoke of some of this issue. And I think we need to get a different. There is a very strong ability in India. The technology is there. The drip irrigation and micro irrigation company are well established over 30 years here. There is a market. There is a mechanism by the government to support this market. But we have to look why this market is not developing as much as it can in other states. And I think the main reason is two. There is something, I've been around in the last few months, both meeting the companies of the micro irrigation and both meeting the farmers and meeting the different stakeholders in some of the states and federal. And I can give you some observation, for example, for a visit that I did in Madhya Pradesh a few weeks ago. If we're looking in some of the districts there, or like Jarao districts and other and Pana districts, there are hundreds of thousands of farmers. Only hundreds, 200 people, farmers using drip irrigation. And when you ask yourself why, you understand it's not only of lack of knowledge and lack of awareness and lack of very straightforward mechanism to buy and install drip irrigation system. It's lack of awareness in the government itself, in the bureaucratic levels. So the transparency and a mechanism that allow individual farmers to purchase and get the knowledge-based approach is very needed. So I think one of the key outcomes that I have is that, you know, Israel, of course, embassy and other industry firm can support, but have to work together. Because the overall, let's say, problem is for the entire industry. It's not for just one company or another. So there is a way forward through Center of Excellence and knowledge-based approach that Israel operate. But this is, I think, only very limited in scope. And we need to have a forum of the entire industry. We need to work together as a coalition of all these companies together with the government of India, with the states government, with the federal government, to establish how this knowledge-based approach could be applied and duplicated across board for any stakeholders, for any farmer across India. Second, I think it's very important to create a mechanism that any project that's supported by the taxpayers, supported by public money of the government of India, should be evaluated according to sustainability approach. That means that if the government in India invests millions or billions of dollars in the next decade for a variety of projects that supports irrigation, and they build huge reservoir and huge transfer of canal, and the last mile is not there. There is no drip irrigation, no micro irrigation, no economical development of the farmer. It's not only about the drip. We need to look what's happened when a farmer installing a drip irrigation system, how it's going to transfer to a more cash crop, who is going to buy his product, which kind of insurance he will get from the government in order to do this transformation from drip irrigation to use drip irrigation. If we only look at water efficiency, if we only look on the question of technology, we're missing a point. The barrier is not just about technology. The barrier is a complete market development. And for that, if you need a cold chain, if you need a market to the individual farmer, anything that connects a full chain from establish the water source to more efficient irrigation, to double his income through development of a market and access to the market approach. Everything needs to have to linkage. So any big project, for example, now they're speaking about interlinkage river, a very huge projects, or a very big project that was on a Khan River, for example. This project out without designing of this complete sustainable approach for the farmer. And of course, drip irrigation and advanced irrigation technique like Livelihood has developed will be part of the solution. But if we only search for drip efficiency, it's not going to change the big picture. And the last point I want to make in this regard is consider the individual farmer. 85% of the farmers in India are small farmers of less than 1 or 2 hectares. This is a challenge, how we can approach this community. And for this community that is not connected only through the governmental big community irrigation system and so on, we need to have a solution. And the solution should be about awareness, about services, about coming forward to support them, not only by installing the drip irrigation system per se, but with agricultural knowledge, with IT industries that can maybe support them through more sophisticated way of approaching data and relevant on irrigation, on agronomical, through some IT solutions, through other solutions that's going to be tailor-made and straightforward for the individual farmer. I think this is a challenge for the industry. And I think if we will, and Israel, of course, government and the will be part of it. We're doing now a model for 25 villages project in Uttar Pradesh to develop a complete irrigation and agricultural development solution. But I think in the end of the day, this is not this is for the private market to come forward and lead India to the 21st century with a good solution, with economical development. And I'm here for support any of this initiative.
So that's great. Would you also like to throw light on because the Israel Embassy has been very dynamic in establishing several centers of excellence. So if you could kindly appraise us also on that.
Okay. The government of Israel in the last 15 years developed knowledge-based approach, what we call center of excellence. Center of excellence or center in agricultural that been developed across India. These days there are 30 active centers and another 10 that in the pipeline. Each center is usually include a demonstration farm when the entire knowledge base for specific crop like vegetables, mango, citrus, pomegranate, etc., is in place. So until today, more than 200,000 farmers across India were getting knowledge through this activity, both on irrigation as well as specific agricultural knowledge. And I think this is a very remarkable and very good knowledge-based approach. We are planning another maybe 2 centers for Center of Excellence in the water industry that will be specific to water outside of agriculture. So we work now with the government of India on these concepts. But the Center of Excellence in agriculture are well established, and it's a way that people can come and learn and develop the skill in the community-based approach. Next stage for it, what we call is the next level, is what we call the Village of Excellence project, and where there is a village approach to develop more market and agronomical development that will be supported by the Center of Excellence.
So it is almost in tune with what you said, that it's a holistic approach on the supply chain management and a demonstration not just of the technologies, but actually implementing it across the villages wherein these centers of excellence are also established. So
Yes.
it's actually taking forward the technology at the grassroots level, not just demonstrating the thing.
Yes. And
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, and one maybe
that.
last thing, I think approaches that gives the individual farmers, knowledge base through smartphones and some initiatives that supported by company like Rivolis and others, to show the farmers that he can be without any barrier, gain the knowledge directly to what he need. I think this is very part of the solution.
And I think especially when a lot of startups are coming up, and most of them have really very, very essential in showing the new technologies which are coming up, apart from irrigation, apart from the regular technologies. Even for the startups also, these are really very good centers which will really take them directly to the farmers level as well. So I'm sure if there are a lot of startups in agriculture sector, and I think Ag is working with a lot of startups, I think they can work with these centers of excellence as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Been with the 2030 Water Resources Group, have been working with state, national government, and rolling out impactful initiatives supporting agricultural water use efficiency. So would like to hear from you on what are the various initiatives and strategies which WRG has been doing it in India for improving the water use efficiency in agriculture.
And thank you, Hemendra, and the Rivolis team for organizing such an important webinar, and also bringing to the table a lot of eminent panelists who actually do a lot of great work in this area. So from 2030 Water Resource Group, it's a public-private partnership platform within the World Bank's water portfolio. We work with the governments, we work with the private sector, and our institutional partners, and help implement water security solutions at scale. Now, we set up multi-stakeholder platforms at the state level, working with the chief secretaries and the various officers at the state level, and run these multi-stakeholder platforms by working with the department heads that includes the principal secretaries of irrigation, agriculture, and a lot of these important government departments. And what we do at the state level is to break the silos in which the state government departments are entrapped. So we work and we create platforms that help and enable the state government departments to work across. Now, I do not say that without that, it's not happening. It does happen, but I think to operate programs at scale, we would need to have improved coordination mechanisms between the government departments. And that is something that the MSP platforms in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh has been effectively doing over the past years. At the global level, we are chaired by the chairman of Nestle and also by the executive vice president of the World Bank Sustainable Development Practice, Mr. Jorgen. The government of Israel is a very esteemed partner within the Governing Council of 2030 Water Resource Group. We also have the global corporates as part of the Governing Council members, including AB InBev and a lot of other companies at the global scale. At the national level, and again, this is something that's very close to our scheme of work, and we have been supporting the governments in creating analytical products around water and try to help the government understand what the opportunities in this sphere are. So in the case of agriculture water use efficiency, I think specifically our interest has been about implementing projects at scale. Now, the examples that we have are principally from Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Uttar Pradesh. In Karnataka, we have been able to work with the government to establish a pilot project, of the scale of 25,000 hectares to implement automated micro irrigation in a command area. And now, looking at the scale of success that the project has achieved, the government has replicated this project in 100,000 hectares in Karnataka. We are also working with the government and the private sector in Maharashtra in close to 250,000 hectares plus, which is expanding now. I think it would be, by the end of the year, it would be touching 300,000 hectares in just Maharashtra. And the principal aim here is to improve the water use efficiency by working with private sector, by working with farmers and targeting crops of importance like sugarcane and also horticulture crops. In Uttar Pradesh, I also see Roshanji here. There are projects that Roshanji and team have been implementing in the area of sugarcane water use efficiency. We're also supporting the government in Uttar Pradesh by working with the government to initiate programs at scale when it comes to taking up the same approach that Dr. Leo just mentioned, taking up villages en masse and also looking at an area-based approach. So, and this is again targeting multiple objectives here by looking at livelihoods, water security, and productivity improvements in agriculture. Now, having said that, the underlying theme here that we try to achieve and try to aim is to achieve scale and not just by targeting individual farmers. Now, when Hemendra and other panelists talked about the need for impacts, one thing that we need to be very clear is that if you are going with the conventional methodology or approach of targeting individual beneficiaries of farmers, then the transaction cost for such a model is going to be substantially higher, and that's going to impact the private sector investments in this area. So what you need to have is to have community projects at scale, which need to have mechanisms, both in terms of administration, design, and governance, that would enable lower transaction cost for the private sector to join forces with the government and implement the program. So the model that we have tested in Karnataka, which seems to be quite successful and is now being replicated in other states as well, is something that combines technology at scale. And when you say technology, it's not to be seen as technology in isolation. You need to think about technology as part of an ecosystem. So we all speak about the benefits, and we are converts in this room, that we believe in the benefits of micro irrigation. We believe in the benefits of micro irrigation in agriculture. And we also believe in the benefits of micro irrigation in water savings as a technology. But drip irrigation or micro irrigation, if seen in isolation as a technology that would enable or enhance farmers' water productivity, I think it is a mistake that we're making. We need to see this as a part of an ecosystem that enables farmers to double their incomes, that enables better livelihoods, better standards of living for the farmers, and in addition, creates co-benefits. And these co-benefits are something that we all need to think of as a team, as a learned group of panelists on how to quantify better and how to monetize. So while we are looking at this ecosystem, we need to think about the primary objective that we are talking about is a technology that enables farmers to improve their incomes. So in the case of Karnataka, the specific experiment that we have is that we brought in technology, and not just technology, but we created a change in the service delivery approach. So we As we all know, the conventional approach has been about a subsidy-based system where the government works with the farmers and the farmer avails the subsidy and then goes to the market and procures the technology. But in addition to that, what happens is that after the farmer procures the technology, he's often left high and dry because the service delivery doesn't include the after-sale service or the operation and maintenance of that technology. So that's one part of the story. The second part of the story is that what if the farmer produces a higher yield? Or what if the farmer produces more with the kind of technology? Where is he going to sell that produce with that? So this is directly linked to your question around returns on investments. So the farmer, to realize the returns on investment on a scale, at a higher scale, you would need to bring in the markets along with the technology. So this is something that we have done in Karnataka. It's been quite successful. We got a project management unit approved by the government that helps a certain area implement drip irrigation at scale. And not just that, they created the market linkages for almost 15 to 20,000 farmers in one go. So we have got almost 40 to 50 different companies sign up with the farmers and the government to create a market linkage mechanism for the farmers to sell their produce back to the market. So that has been a single most important driver when it has come to the penetration of micro irrigation technologies at scale. The third and final thing I just want to also highlight is that when we're talking about scale, we need to understand that in the case of Karnataka, 25,000 hectares took almost 850 crores from the government as an investment. But is that something that the governments can achieve or afford to when you're talking about the scale of 1 lakh or 10 lakh hectares or 20 lakh hectares of micro irrigation? This is where I think there's a room for sustainability financing to come in and pitch in their efforts. So our team in Maharashtra is, again, Hemendra has been part of some of these conversations at the level of, at the ground level, has been trying to innovate around alternative financing as by bringing in private sector financing and work with the government to create sustainability financing mechanisms for this technology to be adopted at scale. Now, even if we say that there is technology and there is subsidy available at the rate of 90% or 100% in some cases, there is a very low adoption, as I think Mr. Kaushal mentioned that in his opening remarks. Now, the reason why we see that happening is obviously the transaction cost and also the long duration that the farmers or the individual beneficiaries have to wait for accessing that technology. Now, if a farmer has to wait for 2.5 years on an average to get a subsidy of, say, for example, 2 lakh or 2,50,000 rupees, then it's not worth for the farmer if he's considering that as an opportunity cost. So I think we would need to have mechanisms, just like we have in Gujarat, the Green Revolution Company, where there is a single window operation system that enables the companies to work with the farmers and help in adoption of micro irrigation. There are also other initiatives run by the state governments like Karnataka Micro Irrigation Corporation. You have also in Andhra, in Telangana, and some other states. So I think there needs to be reforms at that level, which need to enable the adoption of technology at scale and help reduce the operation and maintenance costs. In most cases, we have seen that with operation and maintenance costs, the private sector has to bear a brunt, because if you do not have functioning water user associations, if you do not have functioning farmer producer organizations, then the cost of transaction for the private sector, even after service delivery, shoots up. So we need to take that into cognizance, that you need to have functional community-based platforms or organizations at the village level for the transaction costs to come down and the private sector to be effectively integrated into it. The last point is, again, when we're talking about Privilege, for example, has got other services to offer. You have a very proven technology called Mana, which is about bringing in additional insights into the farm, which could be bringing about weather-based advisory support. There could be value-added services that can go along with the technology. So what are those packages? What are those services that can be offered as a bundle if you were to talk to the farmer? So I think the farmer needs to be also seen at the same pedestal that you see a consumer in an urban location. The farmer demands more. The modern farmer in India would also need to be served with a number of service options as part of a service delivery mechanism and also as part of a bundle of services that you can offer. You can't go around and just market drip irrigation alone. You can't go around and market just weather-based advisory support alone. I think we need to rethink our strategy when you're approaching farmer as a consumer, and you need to think about what bundle of service can be offered. And here is where I think ThinkAg and startups that work with ThinkAg can actually make a difference. You need to think about business models. We need to invent revenue models that can actually enable the shift away from a subscription-based model to maybe something that you could think about, a channel-based approach, or an affiliate model, or something that you could think of where services can be charged, equipments can be on hire, different mechanisms that you could think of. So there is room for invention, and there is room for optimism and hope, as Shashank mentioned in the initial remarks. I would pause there, Sangeeta. Thanks.
Thank you, Ajit, because you have actually given an insight on the actionable strategies to transform this downturn of this macro irrigation sector and what exactly is needed. You almost echoed what Dr. Lear Asaf mentioned, and in fact, in the projects which you have conceptualized on integrated water resource management, the component of marketing and supply chain management has also been incorporated in the Karnataka model which you mentioned about. Ajit, just one question. That like these community-based irrigation projects, it might be with sometimes you dovetail it with macro irrigation, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it is only har khet ko pani. Like, so are you also into conceptualizing of such projects wherein the entire canal-based irrigation systems is replacing the canal mechanism and just going ahead with the pipelines and giving a pressurized outlet to the every farm, and further to that it will be taken up by the state government on their own. Are you also involved in any such projects across the country?
So I wouldn't say that we are hands-on implementing such a project, but there are initial discussions along those lines. Say, for example, in the case of Uttar Pradesh, the government of Uttar Pradesh came up with an approach for improving private sector participation in irrigation and agriculture in Uttar Pradesh. So Leo, Dan was very much part of that conversation with the government of UP. There's again this approach of looking at irrigation reforms. So irrigation reforms would also mean changing or shifting away from canal-based approach to pipeline-based approaches for irrigation. So that's something even the government of Maharashtra is keen in discussing further with the private sector companies. So from our multi-stakeholder platforms, we are happy to engage with the private sector. If there is interest from the private sector to engage with the governments and have that conversations, and also if you think there are policy bottlenecks that prevent you from participating in those conversations or taking part, this is something where World Bank and 2030 WRG can help and work with the private sector through the multi-stakeholder platforms and create that incentive for the private sector to participate. So at this point in time, Sangeeta, I would say that if you are looking at programs that go into pipeline-based bulk water transfer, we do not have a lot of examples, but there are initiatives that are beginning to take shape. In West Bengal, you have the mine irrigation program. You also have initiatives that WRD, the Water Resource Department in Maharashtra, is keen in kicking off. So I think good intent. We need to bring in more momentum, and happy to support the private sector and partners here.
Thank you so much, Ajit. And you also pointed out very rightly that, the agencies like GGRC, which are a special purpose vehicle available for implementation of the scheme. And that is also one of the critical success factor when it comes to adoption of macro irrigation. So we move on to Shri Rajendra Kicharji, who is a joint director and who is one of the most instrumental officers in taking up very innovative projects, implementing it with full dedication. So, Kicha Sahab, we would like to welcome you and understand Rajasthan's perspective and role, and what got you recognized in Limca Book implementation of various schemes which you took up to enhancing of water use efficiency.
Thank you, Sangeeta ji, and thank you, Rivilis, for this opportunity. Good evening to all the esteemed panelists and audience. Rajasthan, being a largest state in India, but the scarcity of water is biggest in Rajasthan. That is the issue. That's why this state has maximum potential for micro irrigation, for water use efficiency. All these has to be taken in Rajasthan. We have about 170 lakh hectare area under crops, net cropped area. And about 50%, that is 80 lakh hectare area in Rajasthan is with irrigation. But still, the micro irrigation in Rajasthan, we have achieved about 16 lakh hectare area under micro irrigation. North and western part of Rajasthan, they have the groundwater and wells and two wells for irrigation. And there we have succeeded with sprinkler irrigation system. So I think we have the largest sprinkler irrigation network in India. About 12 or 13 lakh hectare area is under sprinklers. And that is in the north and western part of Rajasthan. Every farmer of wells and tube wells in western Rajasthan and northern Rajasthan, they, if somebody who has got new connection or the old connection, they will definitely go for sprinkler irrigation. It means the adoption of sprinkler is quite normal in farmers of Rajasthan. In southern part and eastern part, we have heavy soils, and the adaptability of sprinklers there is less than the western and northern part of Rajasthan. So most of the agriculture crops of the western part and northern part, they are covered under sprinkler irrigation system. And sprinkler irrigation system, although it has less cost, but looking to the terrain of the state, it is most adaptable in the area. But now the concern of our government is for this drip irrigation system, the more efficient system, and for cash crops, vegetable crops, orchards, and some spices and medicinal crops. We are focusing on these crops, and this is the concern now for the government. If we see what is the potential, so still we have potential of about 65 lakh hectares in Rajasthan for micro irrigation, and the government is very keen to cover this area within few years. Say, for example, for next 5 years, we have planned to cover on aggressive basis, and we are planning to cover most of the area within next 10 years. So for this, the initiative of state government, the first and the most effective initiative which I can predict is the focus of government and policy makers. So from the last 5 years, our government is specially focused for micro irrigation. In every budget, they have the budget announcements for micro irrigation, and the committed area for every year, this much area has to be covered under micro irrigation. So at higher political level, as well as the bureaucratic level, everybody is very much concerned about this micro irrigation penetration in each and every area of the state, irrespective of any particular district or irrespective of any specific crop. So the most focus area is especially for horticultural crops and for the groundwater areas where we have irrigation through groundwater. So that is our primary focus. Second, the initiative is to replicate this micro irrigation at large scale. We should have a lot of infrastructure as well as the infrastructure of micro irrigation suppliers as well as the dealers. About 170 micro irrigation manufacturers we have registered in a state to have a lot of infrastructure in state, and about 7,500 dealers, they are working in different districts. So that is the strength. If our supplier network can approach each and every farmer, that is good to percolate this technology at every doorstep of the farmers. And at this point of time, we have created a lot of dealers in different districts, even in towns, in villages. So in every village or town, we have micro irrigation agents or micro irrigation dealers, and that is more important for replication of this technology. The other important initiative of the state government is convergence of micro irrigation with a different technology and different schemes. So initially, we converged the micro irrigation system with solar pumping system. About we have 50 to 60,000 solar pumping system in state. So this is the primary requirement of any farmer. If he want to install this solar pumping system, he has to be he is mandatorily come up with this micro irrigation system if he want to have this solar pumping system. Again, the water harvesting systems and farm ponds. We have a large program for water harvesting system and farm ponds. In canal areas, we have diggies, the water storage structures. So every farmer who like to go with these schemes, he has to compulsorily go with this micro irrigation system. So every farm pond, every water harvesting structure or canal area diggies, the farmers who opt this model, he has to be with micro irrigation system. The MIDH programs, especially orchard development and vegetable development programs, they also have been mandatorily connected with micro irrigation. So in our state, some farmer who likes to have the subsidy or assistance under MIDS for orchard development, then he has to adopt micro irrigation, and that was a dual success. One is efficient water use, and second one is the orchard survivability. Initially, when it was not compulsory, then the survival rate of orchards was less than 50%. But now we have more than 90% survivability for new orchards. So that is another benefit for the farmers. The schemes which we integrated with micro irrigation are initially the big project of RSEP, Rajasthan Agriculture Competitiveness Project. There we have implemented micro irrigation. One Japan JICA project, SLIP, Rajasthan Water Sector Livelihood Improvement Project, that has been now integrated with micro irrigation system. We have 38 very specific dark zones which have been identified under Atal Bhujal Yojana. So that has been integrated with this micro irrigation system. And now we have opted a big project under this micro irrigation fund. So it is about 2,000 crore outlay of this project, for which we have taken 765 crores from micro irrigation fund, and it will be also be integrated with the different schemes. So for this, it has been initiated in this financial year, and we will cover about 4.28 lakh hectare area within next 2 years through this specific project. One more initiative that is we think that is more important for implementation of micro irrigation and application of micro irrigation in different area is community participation. So initially we are trying to have the it is government implementation implemented program through maybe micro irrigation scheme, maybe National Mission on Micro Irrigation, or maybe now PMKSY. But if a community is participated, then we can get more results. And through this micro irrigation fund project, we are initiating the community participation. So initially we are opting 22 blocks where the groundwater is depleting at high rates. So on these 22 blocks, we will create some persons who will known as agriculture water ambassadors. So they will be picked up from the community, and from every Gram Panchayat, we will pick 3 agriculture water ambassadors, and they will mobilize the community of their own area, and they will get some initiative for that purpose. Because at this point of time, the government system, we are trying to convince the farmers, we are trying to train the farmers, we are trying to give the knowledge to the farmers to adopt micro irrigation. But through this project, we are trying to involve these community-based persons who will enthusiase their own persons to adopt micro irrigation. And if we can success through this model, it will be replicated throughout in Rajasthan. The 5th initiative of the state is, the micro irrigation is one part, and the synergetic effect of micro irrigation is through fertigation and automation. So at state level, we initiated this fertigation program. Initially, we started the program in 2012-13, but at large scale, the government of Rajasthan has started this program during 2019-20, and we are still continuing at state level this program. So for vegetable growers and orchard growers, this technology along with micro irrigation it proved really very beneficial, and the farmers who are adopting micro irrigation along with this fertigation, they are getting more income. And this is the space, I can say, this is really the sustainable model for specific crops, especially orchards. And in Western Rajasthan, we have developed the clusters of pomegranate and date palm. And most of the farmers, they are using fertigation. The central part in Rajasthan, especially Jaipur, Alwar, there we have developed some vegetable clusters, and the farmers of this vegetable cluster, totally they are using drip irrigation along with fertigation. The another technology that has to be synergized with micro irrigation is automation, and we initiated this automation. Not only the automation in India, especially, it is focused with very high level of farmers, or maybe with protected cultivations. But if it can be replicated in a small farmers also, the model, it may be the simplest model of automation and drip irrigation. Because if we provide drip irrigation to farmers, still they are not, most of the irrigation with wells and tubewells is connected with power availability. So if somebody have electric connections and the power availability is 6 hours, and if somebody have solar pumping system and power availability is for 8 to 10 hours, so he will run the pump for all time. So in this condition, there is no use of drip irrigation or micro irrigation, because it is simply the arithmetic calculation how much water is required. But instead of running the pump for half an hour or 1 hour, they are using for 6 hours. Then it is as good as surface irrigation system. So if we provide very simple controllers to give the irrigation for specific crops, maybe time-based controller, then we can achieve the efficiency system along with this micro irrigation system. So, so far we have provided some systems to different category of farmers. They are mostly small farmers, some protected cultivation farmers, some vegetable farmers, some orchard farmers. But we are trying to replicate this model in at large scale. So this can also boost up the efficiency of the water in the fields. Another specific approach of government is the assistance level. See, the assistance on micro irrigation system by the PMKSY is 45 and 55%. Some of the states, they are providing quite large percentage of subsidy, but we think it should be about 70 to 75%. That is good enough for the farmers and adaptability. So the additional subsidy is also provided through state resources up to the level of 70 and 75%, especially for drip irrigation, because for sprinkler irrigation, the farmers are comfort with the cost and the subsidy level. But for drip irrigation, especially for close growing crops, the cost is still quite high for normal farmers and for small and marginal farmers. So the assistance level could be up to 70 or 75%. It will really attract the farmers to adopt this technology, and we are providing this additional assistance through state resources. So that is also a part to initiate the system in a large scale. One more thing is, as discussed through by my previous panelists, in canal irrigation system, still we are lacking this micro irrigation system. So initially we initiated, see, the first project in Rajasthan, Narmada Canal project was designed with total micro irrigation system. So the piped conveyance and water storage tanks, then the irrigation through total micro irrigation. Now under this micro irrigation fund also we have taken one more canal in Dholpur area. So it will also cover total area under micro irrigation. So it is also on the lines of Narmada Canal. Again, we are adopting some communities, especially in South Rajasthan. We have tribal communities. There, the tribal area development department have provided the community lift solar pumping system for communities and these tribal communities. Now we are trying to convert these all communities under micro irrigation system through this micro irrigation fund project. So such type of communities we are trying to come under this micro irrigation system. So if at community based irrigation systems we provide this, so it can also be in because in South Rajasthan the holding level is also quite small. So we are trying to provide this system in these difficult areas also. One more thing is the because most of the panelists, and it is fact that the cycle for payment of subsidies is still it should be shortened at each and every level, and the system transparency is also an important thing. So especially in Rajasthan, we have adopted this online online end-to-end system for drip and sprinkler, all micro irrigation systems. The farmer can, we have developed a specific portal that is at Rajasthan. Most of the subsidy also at this portal, that is Raj Kisan portal. So Raj Kisan portal, all the farmers who are seeking the assistance for drip irrigation system of micro irrigation system, they can apply on this portal. And after installation and commissioning, the farmers have provided full they have been provided the choice to choose any of the manufacturer or supplier. And then after installation and commissioning, the physical verification and payment system will also online. So this we are trying to have the transparent system, and we are also trying to shorten the cycle of payment. Still, it is I think it is long, as my previous panelist said, 2.5 years. Although it is not so much, but 3 months or 6 months and 9 months, that is also really long time. So if it can be shortened, we can replicate the model on a large scale. So on the conclusion, I can say, if we can provide the supplier network at every doorstep, if we can say community can be participated and the costing can be lowered down. So that is, and finally the policy makers, they are keen to adopt this system, then we can replicate the system everywhere within a short period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kijir Saab, for a very elaborate, very interesting, and very astounding, incredible work which Government of Rajasthan has been doing it. In fact, drip irrigation is meant for fertigation, and that exactly is what something which you have taken up. Not only that, the convergence of different schemes from different departments and dovetailing it with last mile connectivity with macro irrigation is something which is required at national level. I am sure that this takeaway, these are some of the first initiatives and the only initiatives taken by Government of Rajasthan, which has not been replicated anywhere else and which needs to be taken at national level as well. So thank you very much. I can get back to you again. Any water use efficiency in agriculture, any conference, any forum is incomplete if we do not talk about sugarcane, the water guzzler. And we have with us Tamak sir. Sir, you have been very instrumental in taking up various initiatives in increasing the water use efficiency, especially sugarcane being the water guzzler, consuming almost 50% of the water allotted or water in agriculture is being consumed 50% by sugarcane crop alone. So would like to hear you on the initiatives on increasing water use efficiency and the steps taken by Dcm Serram.
Thank you, Sangeeta, and thanks ThinkAg and Livelihood for giving me this opportunity. And I must say that all the previous panelists have shared very insightful perspective of various aspects of water use efficiency. Really privileged to be part of this discussion. I wish to share this subject and touch upon this subject of water use efficiency in a holistic manner. So micro irrigation part has been touched very extensively by all previous speakers. So I shall not be touching upon that, but my focus will be that what we have done to make it happen and to achieve or to increase the water use efficiency on ground. That will be my focus. So just a brief introduction about Dcm Serram. Dcm Serram is involved in various businesses, right from fertilizer, caustic soda, sugar, ethanol, PVC, seeds, etc., etc. So coming to sugar, we are the 5th largest sugar producer of the country, and we produce about 700,000 metric tons sugar annually, and 120 million liter of ethanol we supply to oil marketing companies.
Our plants are located in Uttar Pradesh, central Uttar Pradesh. So we, in terms of outreach, in our command area, we cover about 300,000 hectares of land, and the approximately number of sugarcane growers are 200,000. So to handle this subject of sustainability in agriculture, we have adopted a holistic approach, and we are implementing a sustainable sugarcane production program called Meetha Sona in our catchment area. And for this, I am happy to share that we have got unstinted support from International Finance Corporation, which is a financial arm of World Bank, and Solidaridad. They have been through us since last 7-8 years. Apart from this, we have roped in various technology providers, like Revolution is one of them, and New Mahindra is second one, and New Holland is the third one, besides others, and government institutes like Indian Institute of Sugarcane Research and Sugarcane Breeding Institute. Focusing on the water use efficiency part, we have tried to cover all aspects of water per se, like supply side issues, demand side issues, and how to address this issue in a scientific manner. For this, we started from a study by Triveni Water Institute, CII Triveni Water Institute, and we mapped the entire area from hydrological perspective. And we identified that what supply side initiatives can be implemented over there in our area. So this was the starting point. Then towards demand side, we started from the fundamental issues, the time-tested technology and practices. The simpler one, like for example, trash mulching is well known. Laser leveling is well known and time-tested, proven practice, no problem. So, but how to implement it on scale? So we identified 4 or 5 interventions like laser leveling, trash mulching, then composting, trench planting method, and of course, drip irrigation. These 5 interventions were shortlisted and identified. Then how to implement these initiatives on ground on scale? So then we created an enabling ecosystem for that. Like, for example, we developed micro-entrepreneurs. About 200 micro-entrepreneurs were developed who provided machinery like laser leveler, trash shredder and mulcher, trench planters to all the growers on rental basis, so that everybody can use. And to I'm happy to share that all these initiatives are being implemented on scale. Like trash mulching is being done in our area in 67,000 hectare area. Similarly, composting, similarly, laser leveling is a common practice in our area. Then we roped in companies like Revolution and Rabobank, and both I am happy to share about their contribution. They started this drip irrigation initiative in our area. And of course, this is a niche area, but we are starting it on firm footings, and the work has already started in our area. Then later on, we requested Indian Institute of Sugarcane Research about the evaluation of impact. And I'm happy to share that with the kind of scale on which these activities are being implemented, we are evaluating the impact every year by Indian Institute of Sugarcane Research. And during last 5 years, we have been able to save 574 billion liters of water in our catchment area. And in supply side, again, there also we have implemented, for example, we have identified about more than 108 ponds, and we have rejuvenated for them for water harvesting. And similarly, we have identified 400 abundant wells in our area, which are not used right now for irrigation. We are converting those abundant wells into recharging pits. Wherever possible and feasible, we have identified the locations for check dams. We have built up check dams over there. So the cumulative impact has been very rewarding. I have touched upon this water use efficiency part only. Besides this, we have the pillars of our Meetha Sona program are soil health improvement, productivity enhancement, and mechanization propagation. But what is exactly is to be done as far as smallholders are concerned? Only limited points. 2. 1, how can we demonstrate the value proposition to the growers? That value proposition of sustainable practices has to be demonstrated to the growers. This is clear learning from this. Second, capacity building has to be consistent. And we have used all sorts of tools and technologies for capacity building of our growers. And third, of course, partnerships have to be created so that we can accelerate this whole process. So I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for actually demonstrating that doubling farmers' income, like you mentioned, the value proportion. So if you're saying that macro irrigation leads to food security, water security, energy security, or doubling farmers' income, it has actually been demonstrated by value proportion with your Mitha Soda program. There are two things which I want to quickly take up in view of time. Ajit mentioned that there are additional technologies which should be dovetailed along with macro irrigation to make it sustainable. And also Rajendra Kichardji mentioned that, normally if the pump is available, the farmer's tendency is to use drip irrigation for flood irrigation. So a quick question for Kaushal sir. Addressing to these two issues, what is your take mention about manna? So if you could kindly throw a quick light.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you all the panelists for enlightening me about so many aspects of the water use efficiency. And I had the privilege of working very, very closely with Dcm Serram group in their initiative of Mitha Sona, and I'm really happy and I am proud to be the part of that initiative in our smaller way. And now coming to your question, for the fellow panelists and the people, those who are in audience, is about the manna irrigation. Manna irrigation is a technology which is giving you a right kind of recommendation of the crop specific as well as the field specific, very, very site specific irrigation recommendations. And what it does, let me explain it to the audience here. We are using three things. We are using a remote sensing, we are using hyperlocal weather forecast, and then we are using the KC table to assess the peak water requirement of the crop at that particular growth stage. Through remote sensing, we are mapping the field and measuring three things. What is the ETO, which is evapotranspiration? What are the vapor pressure deficit, VPD? And with the hyperlocal forecast, we are able to gauge the weather conditions, how much is the humidity, how much is going to be the rainfall, how much is going to be the temperature. And then there is an algorithm developed at the back end with the artificial intelligence, which gives you the actual water requirement of the crop for next 1 week time, or maybe as per the irrigation scheduling, whatever it is. And that is a very, very crop specific information goes to the farmer on his smartphone, on a mobile phone, on a daily basis, along with the high resolution imagery of the field and with the irrigation recommendation. And this irrigation recommendation is not going into the millimeter cube or centimeter cube or meter cube. We understand the majority of the farmers don't understand these terms. So what we do is we collect the information from the farmers about the irrigation pump which he is using or the method of irrigation which he is using. And this is irrespective of the irrigation method, whether it's a sprinkler system or the drip system or even the flood irrigation system. Once we know the method of irrigation and we know the pump discharge, we are able to tell the farmer about how many hours, how many minutes he has to run his water pump to irrigate his field. So the irrigation recommendation goes on his mobile phone that you need to operate your water pump, say half an hour today, or maybe you need not to operate it because we know that in next few hours it's going to rain. And sometimes we also know that your ETO losses are not that much, so you need not to irrigate. So we are allowing farmer in conserving energy, in conserving water. The tendency is to over irrigate. Tendency has never been to under irrigate. And at the same time, with the right amount of the water at the right time, at the right place, is helping farmers to increase yield as well as the quality of the produce. So that's what Mana irrigation is doing. People have been asking me, is it another weather forecasting app? We say no, it's not weather forecasting. A lot of people are doing the weather forecasting. But what to do with that weather forecasting, we are a step ahead and saying that with this weather forecasting, you need to take this step as far as the irrigation is concerned. We can, and he can use that for the crop monitoring as well, for seeing his crop sitting remotely anywhere across the world. So this is what exactly the Mana irrigation is, Sangeeta.
Thank you, sir. In fact, Mana irrigation is something which is, if I sum it in a single line, it is a way forward from precision farming to smart farming. And today, when we are able to analyze the entire farm pixel by pixel, this is something which is really able, a farmer is able to control the farm operations in real time using this technology. And when we are saying that IoT, remote sensing, all these technologies are there, a simple way through WhatsApp, you are able to control your irrigation with perfect soil, water, air conditions in the soil. So thank you so much, sir, for that insight. One very interesting takeaway which I could got, which I think which I've learned today. Kicharji, you mentioned about convergence of various schemes and dovetailing it with macro irrigation. Can we say that, you know, like with the watershed, you mentioned that diggies, then the solar water pump and the drip irrigation. So can we say that even if you don't have a perennial source of water, and even if a farmer does not have electricity on the ground, a farmer still can do farming? Because a diggy is there, a solar pump is there, a drip irrigation is there.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. Because during 2 or 3 years, a lot of farmers, they have initiated this farm ponds, especially in Karoli, Swamadupur area, and some Ajmer and Jaipur districts. Now, in most of districts, the farmers are going for this type of technology. Now,
so it's a new.
Yes, so this is the new intervention. The rainwater is harvested in these structures. Then they have small solar pumps, and they can irrigate. They can have crops with cash crops, and they can earn more. So it is possible now. Yes.
Yeah. So that was a great insight. And in fact, my question to Dr. Lear Asaf, sir, what is a way forward? You like you have mentioned about, you have given us a very good insight about supply chain management, holistic approach. Apart from that, anything else you would like to add as a single liner or a final takeaway on what do you see the future?
I think the future lies in, as I told, in two different aspects. Is one of the industry working together with the government, both states government and local government, to create a very transparent mechanism to adapt the technology in a wider sense. And I think the main issue when you look at the farmer is not only about water efficiency, is that you can transfer very simple farmers with only Kharif and Rabi kind of growing season to year-round sophisticated agriculture that can support income in large scale. So I think this is one aspect that is very important on the same amount of water. And this is
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your insight. Ajit, one question to you. A lot of irrigation, integrated water resource management projects, bringing millions of hectares have been done by under your WRG group. You must have seen a good amount of socio-economic changes in the regions where these projects were implemented. Any quick reply on that, on what exactly has been, have you actually seen doubling of farmers' income happening over there?
Yeah, on the income side, obviously there have been gains, but that's a function of the type of crops that the farmers go for, and largely also the market access. So in the case of the example that we discussed, during lockdown, the farmers were able to generate a crop profit of around 75 crores from the project, just because of direct market selling and market access. So that's one. Secondly, also from the perspective of evaluation, we just completed an evaluation of the project, the first pilot in Ramthal. We have studied the socioeconomics and also the agro and hydrology aspect of the project and try to look at what impacts had it generated. So from our experience, we see important insights coming in. Now, something that we realize from the investment is that through micro irrigation, the soil quality has improved. I don't say that a lot of factors have led to this, There are many confounding variables. We would need to understand that more. But one interesting fact is that the soil texture and the soil quality has improved, which now has also opened the gates for private sector and tech companies to look at the possibility of carbon financing in an infrastructure project that was not intended to be looking at soil carbon. But one of the windfall gains that we are talking about here is also in the form of climate tech, carbon farming, and the potential for trading soil carbon in voluntary carbon markets. So I would say that we would need to quantify the benefits and, more importantly, the co-benefits better, because there are obviously many gains that we are capturing from evaluation that we can share. Thanks, Sangeeta.
Okay.
Thank you, Ajit. This is absolutely very amazing because carbon credit is something which is related with climate control, sustenance, and a new insight again into this particular technology, which we were otherwise talking only in terms of doubling or in terms of production and all, but it is beyond that. So thank you so much for that insight. Tamak sir, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If
yes,
I can add just one last point, because I think just to address the audience, it will be important. You speak in the beginning about addressing new market. I think one of the new markets that should be included is the reuse of wastewater, including drip irrigation and advanced agriculture as part of it. And I think this is right now it's a very missed opportunity that is looking ahead. India will invest a lot of money and resources in developing new infrastructure of wastewater treatment plant as part of national policy. And in this, if this could be connected to irrigation and to agricultural development, it will be the way forward, and therefore drip irrigation system and advanced agriculture should be part of it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Asaf. Tamak sir, I do not have time for question, but I just have got one request to you. Since you are on the policy body of various sugar associations and all, how do you replicate your model, which you have done it with Dcm Serram, and listing so many benefits across the country? And how do you make it as a part of a policy that sugar is a water guzzler, and at least 10% of 15% or 20% of the area of each of the sugar factory could be converted into macro irrigation? So kindly take this up, sir. This is what is our request to you through this panel. And I request, I'm extremely thankful to all the parties, to all the panelists, and I request Abhijit to take over for a vote of thanks.
No, extremely engaging and very enlightening for the audience, and it was also a very good learning session for all of us. I do agree, and thanks to everyone for giving your valuable time into this discussion. I have just to echo a few things for the innovator community. So maybe what came out was that ICID has a platform which basically can promote, can highlight, can basically feature some of the good innovations. So a request to the startups to kindly profile yourself and then make the use of the study tours, the network. They have a very high level community, multi-country community. Center with Israel and India, they have set up a lot of center of excellences. So I think Dr. Lair might correct me. So the entry is not a barrier. Anybody can go into this. And from Ajit's remarks, I also wanted to echo one thing, that irrigation as a service model and moving from a capex to an opex model, kind of, I mean, these are the models that have the future, and innovators actually should think about such models. And partnerships, yes, multi-stakeholder partnerships is the way forward. So thank you everyone. And as a last this thing, I would like to hand it over to Hemendra to offer his vote of thanks.
Thanks, Abhijit. You've done the great job. I don't think I have anything to add, but yeah, just want to thank all the panelists and the participants who come together for this important discussion. And I sincerely hope we keep engaging with each other, and it's not event to event sort of engagement. Even if we can engage in between, I would really love to build some interesting partnership and pilots especially to drive innovation in the sector. There are a lot of startups who would love to engage with each one of you. So if you can give them a platform, they may succeed, they may fail, but I think they deserve a platform for the hard work they've done. So with that hope, I thank all of you, and I pretty much look forward to work with you in this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.